Wait,
where'd that one go?
I had lunch with James Phillips, who runs that branch
great.
on Saturday. He was pissed off.
I heard from Jeff Turner.
I bet you did.
How's it going?
Probably more than once.
So we're
You get a little work in this morning?
Yeah, somebody screwed up there.
Are we being televised? So I know I saw it. It was two.
Let's call the meeting to order. George will be absent. I don't know about Tammy. George is under the weather. Item number 2, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2018-2019 City of Enid budget. Aaron.
Morning, Mayor, Commissioners. We started off last week and covered several funds. Today, we are going to cover all the ones that are highlighted in green up here, which is the capital improvement plan. As we look at what that looks like, it comes to $12.8 million this year. And the cover starts on page 102 and then goes through page 116, 118 in your budget book. So those are the pages we'll be talking about today. When we look at it compared to last year overall, it is an increase of $47,000. There is some variances within each of these areas. Street and alley specifically, we got some more funding there for capital for our public utilities and public works divisions to be able to do a little more street improvement, crack sealing and asphalt and such there. And then each of the other funds are based on the projects that had the highest priority. And as Chris goes through those projects, you'll see what each one of them are and how we came up with those numbers for this year. As we look at the budget, 12.8 of it is coming in as the total, but 12.2 of that is coming from a transfer from EMA. The other 600,000 are non-EMA revenues. So I know that's consistent with what we've done in the current year as well. I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to go through each of the projects that make up that $12.8 million this year.
Thank you. Okay, we ready? Okay, what I'd like to go over today is what we've proposed for budgeted items within the upcoming fiscal year, FY 18-19. The purpose of the capital improvement program is obviously to improve our real property and to perform major maintenance on some of our projects. The funds are up there on those that we'll talk about: street and alley, capital improvement, street improvement, sewer, stormwater, water capital, and then we have an escrow account at the back end. Basically, we have 51 projects that we're going to be working on for approximately $12.8 million. We also add a little bit on where we think these fit kind of supporting our comp plan. So and let's get started. Under road maintenance, we have $350,000 put in for road maintenance for public works. We have several areas that Gerald will want the public works guys to fix, and specifically, we've added $50,000 to replace these panels here by this fire station. The turning movements of the fire trucks gets pretty hard on concrete, and so we need to go through and repair that. This one also includes a little bit of flume work that needs to be done as well. On the street improvement program, we've got 1.5 for this year. The purpose of this program is to do, it's a continuous program. We do it every year. It allows us to do reconstruction and heavy maintenance on our streets, our local streets. The intent for this year is, the way we normally get to these lists is we have a list of streets that are prioritized through us and Public Works and the city manager, and then we down select and bring those to you. This year's a little different. We've got a couple of streets that we picked out last year that are going to be, that turned out to be significantly more than what we think we can afford, but that puts us ahead in the game. What we'll do is we'll add add alternates in the current fiscal year streets that are not, that we can't afford, and change order them in this upcoming year. To give you an idea what that looks like, we have 3 streets that are currently up for reconstruction in this budget year. We also did up to about 90% design on Kennedy between Ash and Hemlock. It's in pretty rough shape, but it is a very long stretch of road. So that one is another one of those that we'll plan on bringing into the next budget year 19. If you want a summary of what we're doing, hopefully you can see that. Up here are the streets that we're working on in this budget year. We've included in this table our mill and overlay, our 3 streets that we have out to bid. Bids are due back on the 23rd. And then the streets that we have in our plan for the coming budget year.
Are those in our book? Is that table there in the book?
That table is not in your book yet.
Show us some slides. We will try to get you.
Okay. I was just curious about what streets could you read off the streets that we're going to redo here? I can't. I can see it up there, but I can't read what it says.
So I can barely do that myself, but let me try. Obviously, East Broadway, mill and overlay. We're doing that this year. We've got 12th Street between East Walnut and Chestnut, East Harvard between Jackson and Midway, and there's a little flume work on that, and then Indiana between Jefferson and Adams. In the coming budget year, we'll finish West Broadway to 412 from Washington to 412.
81?
81, yes. Excuse me, you're right. We have work due for the ADM truck lane, which we'll talk about later. That's supported by a TIF. We have the airport entrance road. And then we have Kennedy Street from Ash to Hemlock. Now, we have a rough budget number of about $1 million for that street itself. It's a long street, lots of intersections, sidewalks. There's a lot to do there. We expect that to be pretty expensive. Any residual funds that we have above that, we will use to start design work on the next year's streets, which are, we have a East Birch, 19th, 3rd Street, 5th Street, and Hoover.
Are those all to be bidded, you have to let the bids on all those?
They will be bid when they're ready. The only ones that we have out now are the ones for this budget year, the top 3. Then we'll add anything that we can't afford because of this year's budget constraints. We'll go back, finish the design work on Kennedy, bid Kennedy out, and then design the next, whatever. If we have sufficient funds, we'll start designing the next year's projects.
How much traffic does Kennedy get?
I don't have traffic counts on that. I understand these priorities came between us and Public Works, Public Utilities, and the city manager. And we talked about these last summer, last fall.
Do we have Cambridge Street on the list anywhere? Of all the streets that I've been on in the city of Enid, that's probably the worst that I've been on.
I can't answer that, but we can sure go look. Cambridge?
Yes. It's, and it actually carries quite a bit of traffic, but I'm always fascinated every time I go on that that's even a city street.
Cambridge, where's that located?
It's off the street.
It goes off of 81 and runs, I think it just goes east off of 81. But it's, I don't think it was originally, it looks to me like one of those streets that somebody just went out there and dumped a bunch of asphalt on and kind of spread it around a little bit.
Originally, that's how we did develop our streets, is we took our dirt streets, and then you would put a slurry seal down and build it up over time.
Yeah.
Originally, that's how we built streets.
This one here is in such bad shape that I think you'd have to go back to square one and just bulldoze it down to the dirt.
We find our streets are a lot like that. We'll go take a look.
Okay.
A little location map on what we're doing. This is next year's projects. Kennedy, the area of Kennedy we're talking about is here. And obviously the airport. And then these two are the arterial streets.
Chris, on that 1.5 million,
Yes, sir.
is that going to be done completely through Public Works?
No. Most of that is competitive bid and contractors. That's a lot of work to get done through Public Works, because it requires a lot of manpower, a lot of material.
I was just curious because they really did a good job. off of 412.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, on Westbrow?
Brow.
On Westbrow?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And you've noticed around town that a lot of the work that they've done on the intersections and the stormwater work, it's really to make a big improvement. It's making an impact.
Commissioner Norwood, we try to focus the public works improvements on repairs in certain areas simply because the crew is small and these jobs are big and the needs are great. So, but yes, we will pass that along to them. They appreciate hearing that kind of feedback.
Can you talk about the airport road,
Yes, I can.
what we're doing there?
I actually have a set of slides on that a little bit
Okay.
further down.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then here's a summary slide of the top few that we're talking about doing in the future.
One of the roads I think I've got more complaints about over the years than any others is Maple Street from 10th to 16th. I don't know that I've ever heard any more complaints than that 6-block stretch there. Maple Street, from 10th to 16th is,
16th?
and then Maple, I just mentioned Maple behind Adams, which would be between 21st and 22nd, I think, just a few blocks away, is also impassable. And we had a leak there, we did some repairs, the leak went fine, but the road, the entire block is just wrecked. And that's the route for everybody who picks their kids up from Adams School. That's you have to go along Maple to get to the pickup area. They route everybody one way, pick up and drop off time both. And it's about to get even worse when they start the construction there. I don't know where that fits, what that would cost, but we've got to address it, especially by the school.
Right.
That other 6 block is going to be a bigger project, I know, but that 1 block behind the school, we need to get, I think that
On
may
the
be
north
more than
side of
just a-
Adams
Yes,
Elementary?
yeah. Maple Street, north side of Adams Elementary.
Yeah, we've got the sidewalks going there, and they're in the process.
They're done. I mean, they're almost done.
Yeah, we are.
The sidewalk part is.
Their
But the,
construction part's still going.
but the road bed's in horrible shape.
Okay.
What we will likely need to do is come back and revisit these projects. What Chris had mentioned to you is last year we had more streets in the project than we had funding. I think these streets a continuation of some of those, or these?
Yeah, this is the continuation of the list of streets we talked about last fall.
Certainly, we can, I don't know that a whole lot of design work has been done on these,
None.
so we can certainly bring some of these back. We want to have approval on whatever street projects we work on. So these are obviously bad, too. You could flip a coin on which one's worse, but please keep on letting us know. We'll take notes, and we'll come back.
Yep.
I think
after
those are
the
the only
budget on.
other areas. We'll talk about that with Airport Road. Go ahead.
So, but what we're trying to do here is we're trying to reserve enough funds to start design work on the next year's streets to kind of keep us up in front of it.
The Broadway to campus, has that been put out for bid yet? From 16th to campus?
I believe it has.
It has? Okay.
Yes.
I know that
We're
we're waiting for the box culvert to get done before they finish.
Yes, the structural part of the box culvert's done. They're doing the approaches and the sidewalks, and then we'll be ready to turn them loose.
Okay. So we're just waiting for that part to get done for the next?
I'm not sure, I can't confirm that we've actually got it out to bid.
Okay.
It is out, so it'll be due back on the 23rd of May,
Okay, great.
would be my expectation.
Great.
Chris, do you do any alley work?
No, sir, we do not.
Is there alley work that needs to be done?
There's probably alley work that needs to be done, Mayor, but we can't, we don't get to the alleys because we haven't been able to get to the streets. The alleys that we do work on, typically Public Works can go out and put some asphalt or something. If we have dumpsters or back there or some kind of city reason to go back there. It's difficult for us to justify unless there's some kind of valid reason.
Okay, going on. These are our 2 sidewalk partnership programs. We've actually had a lot of involvement on the commercial side. Some really good products this year, once again. We have some capital improvement for grant matching that we're using for a park trailhead. This is, you can see how the numbers compare, 90 and 160. The intent of this project is to design and construct a park trailhead as a continuing process for improving our parks. The grant has been submitted. We should find out here sometime this summer. Once we find out what the grant is, then we'll come back and talk about where we want to put this.
Cool.
And we have our landfill construction this year, 1.5. That'll take us, that's roughly a 3-acre cell and a half. It should take us out about 2.5 years. And we'll start on the design after we get this, of the next cell, once we get this one constructed. It's one of those things we continuously have to stay on top of.
Chris, is the landfill still going up, or is it just mostly going sideways now?
Lou?
Going sideways, and then we're carrying it all the way up as far as you can to keep the massive slope at the top.
I just wondered how tall it was going to get.
As tall as it is right now, all we're doing is spreading it out. As we spread out the cells, start at the bottom and work their way up to the top and then slope at the top.
Maybe we might eventually have a ski slope or something there.
We'd have to have a snow machine.
You want the first ride, sir?
No,
No?
not
Okay.
me. Tammy's the one that breaks in those.
Oh, okay. We're also taking a look at our signal timing. We've got another project in here to update some of our signal controllers. We have really a technology problem. Our technology is antiquated, and it's no longer sustainable. And so as we replace those, we need to come back and do a timing study and then figure out what a good execution plan is.
So is this isn't a specific intersection or set of intersections, this is,
This should be down, my understanding is this is down Garriott.
It's reviewing Garriott and Van Buren, is my understanding. Isn't that right, Everett? And it's engaging, working with engineering and TEC, I believe, to come in, and that's who gave us the proposal. We'll go through our process. But the idea is we think we can do better on timing. We're going to need some help on that from some engineering folks, and then we'll identify what's involved. I'm sure there'll be more and newer equipment involved, and they'll specify certain intersections probably first.
but they're just looking at the highways, they're not looking at downtown as part of this?
No, this is
believe
just the
downtown is
highways.
Okay.
You know, 81 works pretty good. Your controllers on 81 are actually fairly current, so they're not that big of a problem. What we get into a problem is when we have these antiquated controllers and they get a power interrupt or get run over by a vehicle, they tend to go into timing mode, which really takes hours for it to get through traffic backups to get it back in sync with the rest of them. And so that's really one of the things we're trying to address.
Didn't we do a couple of these intersections, maybe Johnson?
We did.
We did.
We may have put some equipment in there. I know we upgraded the signage.
No, but I thought we did some, like, the signalizing equipment in the
We
last
did
budget
some
year.
on Johnson and Garriott and
Maybe one other?
Hoover.
Was it Hoover, I think?
Yeah.
Hoover,
Or
Okay,
the one by Applebee's?
yes.
okay.
We're also working on improving some video detection out on 412, 10th and 42nd Street. The idea is you improve your video detection, the distance the video detection can see oncoming traffic and work the timing of the lights that way. Kind of helps. And then here's the project to do some upgrades on some of our traffic controllers. There's 10 signalized intersections. Unfortunately, I don't have that list with me right now, but the intent is to bring those controllers up to technologies of today. Okay? We also have a maintenance project on the chillers for this administrative building. Just it needs to be done. And then we have a remodel project on the RSVP building. That'll include windows and doors. It's time to take a look at it, get it up to date.
Does the city own the RSVP building?
I believe we do.
Because I'm sure
Send it out.
it may be fairly accurate, because I know Frank's would have worked on.
Okay, confirmed. We also have some signal poles that we need to fix. Another one of those internal public works projects. Those are the intersections we're looking at. Those are the worst ones. We have an issue with our methane out of our landfill. We're exceeding our discharge. So we're going to do a little design work here, update some of that information, improve the design, figure out how we can flare that off if we can, that close to the base, and get back, make sure we don't end up in trouble with DEQ. and also look out to the future, see if we can't build something a little more modular. And that's, we plan on roughly putting it on the south end of the landfill. We have our, under property repairs and maintenance, we've got 300 set aside for improving accessibility. We'll add, we have a fair portion of sidewalks around Coolidge that are designed and ready to go. We'll bid those out or change order those in when we roll into the new budget year. And then we also have sidewalks at Garfield, Taft, Monroe, and then a couple intersections that need some attention. So we got plenty to work to do. We take these at 300 chunks. This is another one of those maintenance projects that we've got in there. This is really what we need to do is take a look at our inventory of our buildings and determine which buildings are at risk for water and termite damage, protect those that we can. This grew out of what we found when we did the roof repairs on the train depot.
Is that 50,000 or 350,000?
The total amount for the fund is 350. This project is 50. Reconstruction and overlay, 1.7. Of that, we have $1 million applied, ready to apply to Cleveland, north of the railroad crossing to Willow Road. What we plan on doing with those funds this year is do our utility relocation and then acquire the right-of-way that we need for that. We anticipate we're probably at about a 50-60% design. So we'll be ready to sit down with the utilities and do a utility coordination meeting within a month, month and a half, and get started on that. As soon as we roll into the new budget year, well, maybe not as soon as, but shortly, late summer, early fall, we'll start our right-of-way acquisition. This particular project is going to has some challenges with it. The stormwater that we're having to manage going down Cleveland is pretty significant, and we're trying to find a way to do that and take care of it without really creating a significant cost problem and budgetary problem. We're concerned that the cost to get it underneath the railroad would be more than the cost of building the street.
Really?
Really.
Just running a channel underneath the tracks.
That's just getting it under the railroad.
That's what I mean, but like,
Building a box structure under the railroad.
Currently, there's just 3 or 4
There's
corrugated pipes or
Yes.
concrete pipe.
There's some corrugated pipes and one concrete pipe under there.
to replace that with a box will be that expensive?
The challenge being is you're working on the railroad's right-of-way. They have to approve the design. And then there's the question that we don't know the answer to, and that is, would we be required to use their design firm?
Probably don't have anywhere else to go.
Well, we're looking at that, sir.
Well, that sounds like a bureaucratic pain in the ass, but the cost, I don't understand why
You have to
cost
move-
gets that crazy.
You can't shut the railroad down. So everything you do has to, you move the tracks over a little bit while you build half, move them back, build half.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. Ugh.
okay.
Okay? But we'll be bringing information on that one to you in the future. And there's a location map. We also have in this fund 300 set aside for the truck lane over at ADM. The intent of this project is to design it in-house, contract it out, and what we can construct, we'll construct based on what the budget limitations are. And as you can see from the location map, we're looking at from their entrance down to this turnaround. I really don't think we'll get that finished in construction for those dollars, but the intent is to get to the design taken care of. And I have a potential stormwater problem at that intersection as well. We had a water line repair and the street's in pretty bad shape at that location. And I'm concerned that there's some stormwater underneath it that's going to create a little more work.
So the next block over is this stretch of Kennedy that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
We're not talking about doing those at the same time, are we?
No. Well, pretty close. They won't be at the same time on the schedule, but they'll be in the same budget year.
I just mean, you know, folks living around there, both roads are shut down at the same time.
We'll consider that, take that into consideration. The intent of most of this is not to rebuild 4th Street. It's to rebuild that truck lane that they've got on the east side. So I don't anticipate the street would be closed.
Yeah, and this project came about as part of the TIF with ADM. And at the point, that was the best estimate we had to do that truck lane. Which is probably right. To do the whole truck lane will probably end up being more than that. So at this point, we're just looking to spend the funds that we recover over a period of time through the TIF to do that.
As much as we can, yeah.
As much as we
Do as much as we can.
That area you're talking about, the stormwater problem area, there's also there's been a water leak with a bad spot around 4th. We're going to try to fix that with this.
That particular intersection is right here.
Chris, where are the improvements that ADM is making, going?
On their site, it's not in the picture as best I can tell. I believe what they're doing is they're adding to some buildings over here.
Which is basically a vacant lot east of them.
It's their property, yes.
Is it their property?
I'm sure it is.
That's a huge addition, 30-some million dollars.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's expanding into that open space.
No,
Mayor, I think it's in the back part.
They
where
may
the
not
farm
have
mill
to.
was.
But there are lots of acres east of that.
Yes.
I'm sure they're staying west of this spur.
Yes. West? I'm talking about north and east.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, north and east of 4th? Up in this area.
Yes.
I can get you a location map if you'd like one. We have their site plan. Okay. Also in this fund, we're going to rebuild the entry road for the airport. We've budgeted $400 for that. We anticipate using PC concrete, and we'll evaluate that after we get the design work done. This is Boeing Drive, and this is the section that we'll be rebuilding. Should be pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It's flat, there's not a lot of drainage. It doesn't require a lot of heavy truck traffic.
Oh, no, can speak to it a little bit, too. I think it's to connect to the parking lot that's going to get rebuilt for the terminal. Is that right, Ono? You want to come up and? Okay. Would you come on up to the mic, and they may have some follow-ups.
But this is just the chunk, before Chris walks too far away, on the airport. This isn't that Gentry Road that connects up to Market Street or anything like that?
No, this is from Gentry Road,
Okay.
the approach to wherever he ends up putting his parking lot and his building.
Okay.
Right, the road's been in bad shape for many, many years, and this is, in my opinion, a good opportunity to fix that road in conjunction with the terminal, and people arriving will, go through the new terminal, and the new road coming into to Enid.
Okay.
See, that was magical, Ono. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, bridge construction and renovation. During our last semi-annual inspection of our bridges, they identified a couple of structures that needed some, what they considered light maintenance. And so we budgeted $100 for that. Those are the two locations. One of them is deep within this structure, this stormwater structure. Some spalling's going on, so we'll need to get somebody to go in there and fix that. We'll contract that out. And then the other
Will
one.
that mean resurfacing that chunk of road over it?
No, we'll do that from the inside.
Okay.
The spalling is on the inside of the box structure.
Okay. That chunk of Randolph right there where, before it goes back up, is pretty rough.
There are several places
Yeah.
pretty rough. And then the other one's up on Breckenridge. We have several park projects to go through now. We've budgeted $500,000 for that roughly. We have a boat dock that we're going to work on building. The design is complete. We do have that in-house and ready to go. And then there's a companion sidewalk project, which is the next one. And here's the location of the boat dock. Here's the carousel, here's the boat dock, and then we'll build a sidewalk to get to it.
Wait, before we get off Meadow Lake, what happened to our design we paid for last year to get our trail below the spillway? Did we get that design?
That study is coming back to you probably later this month, early next month, on what the engineer's analysis came up with.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a little bit frustrating. This started talking about it 2 years ago, and we finally got the design paid for in last year's budget cycle, and we're a year on, and we still don't have the design for literally what should be ultimately a concrete path below the spillway around the corner. It'll be another year before we could put that in the budget. I mean, we've been talking about this for the, 5 years I've been sitting up here, just trying to get a pedestrian path from one side of Meadow Lake to the other. It
You wanna
does
address
feel
that one,
kind of
Gerald?
interminable.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Why don't we start that earlier?
Well, there's probably because other things, limited staff and
Yeah,
probably
but we
that
farmed
was-
this out. This wasn't staff.
We did,
We
we
hired
did.
somebody to do.
We did.
Sidewalk below spillway.
The best answer I can give you is we should be coming back with the results of that
Study.
analysis study soon. And there is no money, you're correct, at this point. However, depending on the results of that and what you want to do,
I mean, we saw the
we can
preliminary
look at-
study. It was, you can spend $1 billion and build a bridge, $500 million and connect to the side of the highway, or we can build a sidewalk that's going to get washed out in a storm and we might have to go power wash it. This seems like one of those, why, God, why do we spend this much on engineering for that answer? And why on earth has it taken a year to get an answer that seems obvious to everybody in the world that doesn't have an engineering degree? 5 years on.
well, I think that when we get the analysis, you may be exactly right.
Yes,
And
I'm almost
certainly
certain,
the
certain I
most
will, yeah.
economical method, unless there's other issues, and there are other issues in this with the floodway and stuff, the floodplain. However, the best answer I can give you is if the commission wants us to look at figuring out what the additional funds are to add to connect, we need to be doing that to put in this budget, or you're exactly right. We'll
Yes.
be waiting another year. So.
Yeah. No, let's
Or
let's
adding
figure
it.
out what it will take to build a concrete path that will get washed out, and we may have to go get a permit from Army Corps or whoever to allow it to get washed out and power washed once every however often.
Do we have any idea when trail that this pathway is supposed to be connected to is going to be accomplished?
It's not in this budget.
That is
either.
also not in the budget. You're talking about to the trail to Vance
Vance.
Yeah.
from south. No, we do have that designed.
Yes,
And we do have a
it's ready
cost
to go.
estimate. I don't recall what it was, but it's 200,
About $1 million.
so it's about a
It's a little over a mile.
That is why it's not in the budget right now. One of the priorities we'll be looking at with our grants is looking at anything to help with the Caw Lake and looking at parks.
Well, and
soccer
part of
fields,
getting this
trails.
design, what Cooper told us is if you go get a design and you could take the design to the Air Force, then maybe we can track down some money for it, but you got to get a design first.
And certainly he's game for doing that and has been looking at doing that. The funds that he immediately has available with the Strategic Military Commission have been utilized for the airport
Sure.
up to this point. So,
Well, but the impression was, I mean, we talked about this last budget cycle too, when we budgeted the design work, that we have a lot of folks from the base using the trails. There should be some rational way to get to the gatehouse. If we get a design, then maybe we can go to them and say, okay, how can we work together on this project? So we have the design. I understand we don't have the money. I mean, that's a lot of trail, but I'd really like to see us doing something with the design we just spent a bunch of money to do, more than just set it on a shelf.
So I guess the question is what's the next step?
Yeah, what do we have to do in the budget to make you do something else?
well, the next step is get funding. So I can reach out to,
You need $1 million, or what, is that what we're looking for?
well, I think, I don't, he's going by memory too. It's
I'd have to go back and
Rough
check,
order
but
of magnitude.
it's going to be $1 million.
$1 million.
Well, we're generally about $1 million for a mile, right?
It is,
Some
roughly.
crazy.
Mike Cooper can do magical things, and I think he could probably come up with 125 grand or something, probably from the Strategic Military Commission, because that's usually what our share is. The difficulty will be, what else can we get? I know we can
Well, let's keep
dig
working on
into
that
to
one.
trail grant opportunities. Typically, what we've done in the last couple of years has been related to road projects specifically, and then some of those have been curtailed or cut.
How many options do you have, Chris?
For crossing,
Yes.
we're looking at 4, maybe 5, total of 5. They found another one called a floating bridge. So they're looking into that as well. The whole intent of that project is to give you the information you need to make a conscious decision. Because your engineering staff tells you you don't want to build a low water crossing.
And we are telling the
Wait,
engineering
wait a
staff
minute.
that I know it's hard.
It's not hard.
Chris, say that again, please.
Your engineering staff is telling you, we don't want to build a low water crossing
Low water crossing
across below the spillway.
next to 81?
Yep.
And I understand that it's not the ideal option. It will cost a tenth of a bridge. And so I don't care if we have to go sweep it off or power wash it. We can do that an awful lot for a tenth of the cost of a bridge.
I do look forward to the report coming back, and it should be coming soon. And
Well, I
I
also-
think it will help.
I mean, with
it may even
regard to
help
the
with what
report-
option you're talking about.
Sure. With regard to the report, what we put in the budget wasn't do a study to tell us we can't afford a bridge.
That's
It was
actu-
engineer it. I
No,
think
that's
is what we
actually
put.
incorrect. It was to do the study and analysis and give you cost, construction, and risk.
Go look at that video. I'm pretty sure what we said is go figure out how to build it. Maybe that's too colloquial.
Well, why don't we do this? We will get as soon, they're going to be coming in
It's coming
soon.
back.
Okay.
And we'll all be interested.
Absolutely.
Myself. And depending on the cost, because they're going to give us some cost, order of magnitude, I think is the language they use,
Well, we call them budgetary numbers.
for each of those 5 options. So hopefully one of those options is
This would be really
affordable.
obvious.
And then we can look at trying to get it included in this budget somehow if we can find funding. Or as you know, we can always modify the budget as we go.
Sure.
We could modify it now if there's some projects that you would rather rearrange or delay, or if we could come up with some additional funding or
I think
fund balance.
we also need to not devalue the safety of life. Safety is an issue with the construction of these bridges and these pathways. I don't want to see anyone lose their life. So I'd rather spend money and save lives than to have it on my watch that somebody died because we're trying to save a buck. Why don't we fundraise some money some kind of way? My question is, Chris,
Yes,
will
sir.
this generate revenue?
You're talking to the wrong man.
Will it generate some revenue? Yes, it'll generate a little bit of revenue. At this point, it's kind of like the park shelters. Those kind of improvements will not pay for themselves. That is done as an effort, a quality of life park improvement in conjunction with the efforts that have been going on with Meadow Lake for several years now.
So these rides aren't going to be for free?
Are you
No,
referring to
not-
the trail crossing Meadow Lake going south?
Well, actually, I'm referring to what's on that screen for right now.
The boat dock.
These 2 projects.
At this point, and can you go back to that picture? At this point, the boat docks, if they get built, we would probably be looking to hire some part-time seasonal employees unless we can find an organization that wants to run the paddle boats. The intent of this is to bring the paddle boats back permanently. And we do have the paddle boats, we just don't have an ADA accessible way and a boat dock down there to launch them from. We don't know what we would charge, but it would likely be, the guy that ran it for a while charged a certain amount for, I want to say he charged $5 or $10 for 30 minutes. I can just tell you it won't be a money-making venture like most things we do, but it generates a little bit of income and quality of life. That's a project that potentially you guys can measure. Commissioner Ezell is correct. We've been talking about the trail for a while. If we would want to prioritize the connection and the connection was affordable, that could potentially be what I'm talking about when we could rearrange the budget and delay a project or basically prioritize one project over the other.
Because what I hear so many times is there's nothing to do. We need to find something to where we can get people excited, give them a place to go, something that they would like to see, especially after experiencing that trip in Washington, D.C. I mean, that was an incredible trip. Things like that can happen in Enid, but we have to care. and be concerned about it and create an atmosphere to where young people will have a safe place to go and do something that they would enjoy. They would not mind spending money. And if we can get them to spend the money, I know my children can get me to spend money faster than I will spend it on my own. So if we can get them,
earn it.
right, exactly. So if we can make that happen, then we can fund a lot of these things and not have to rely solely on the budget.
Well,
But Ben, I know what you're saying. This has been going on for years. But my thing is the safety of life is more important than money.
Okay, but I think you're talking about two entirely
I'm trying to
different
tie them in together.
Yeah, but you can't tie them together. I mean, they're two totally different projects. I mean, certainly the quality of life investment that we have been doing, we've got to continue. It will be a forever project, investment in quality of life here. This is one of those quality of life projects. Never going to pay for itself. That's just the way of the world. But the trail, we can't go fundraise to buy a $5 million bridge across the middle of Meadow Lake. I mean, we can only pay for that out of our budget. And in terms of prioritizing projects, I mean, I'm not saying that we need a dangerous way to get from one side of the park to the other, because everybody's doing it already. My kids go out there and walk across the creek. I do it. I've been doing it for 32 years. I mean, I've been doing it since I was a little kid. I just want to pave it so we can do what everybody's already doing, but I can also, my wife can take her walker across with me. So when our kids go from one side to the other, we can roll across. And I don't want to go build a giant monument bridge across the pond. I just want a sidewalk and accept that it may get wet sometimes, and we may have to also buy a power washer or something and throw up signs that say, don't cross it when the water's high. I mean, we've got stuff like that all over town that people just use common sense.
Crosswalk.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to, but we can't go spend, I mean, to build a bridge or something like that would be some crazy cost.
I look at the safety issue of all four of those points that you have to cross, to put the trail across Meadow Lake Pond, Meadow Lake. I look at all of it as a safety issue.
Because they're walking across the railroad bridge. We're walking through the creek. I mean,
That's a stupidity issue.
I'm sure that almost everybody in this room who has kids out there has gone chase one across that bridge. And
Mine may have, but I don't want to even hear that they did that. That, to me, is
Sure.
a stupidity issue to cross that railroad bridge.
and that's
They
why
do
I
it
just
all
want
the
to make
time.
it, yeah,
But
I think when we,
simplicity.
that's why we.
I think when we get that study back, it's going to be
Okay.
clear one way or the other. We're having them look at 5 options. There's not going to be 5 good options in the end. There's going to be 1 or 2 maybe.
Darwin, we spent 7 years trying to get a hotel started in downtown Enid.
Sir.
Tammy and Ron and I have lived 7 years to see that PVC pipe come out of the ground. And it will change the entire looks of downtown Enid in years to come.
One thing that did come to my mind was the bridge that's up out at Crossland. There's a waterway.
The box structure on the east side, Yes.
With the big
concrete
culvert
block.
pipes
Yeah.
coming through.
That
design there.
Are you
I
talking,
mean,
are you
on the
talking?
north end,
On the north end, yes.
yeah,
By the entrance road.
right by the
Okay.
entrance road.
Right.
I mean, that's something I could see that would work, and it would
part
be
of it.
safe, but a sidewalk through a waterway.
Well, and I think, sorry, Derwin, just to back up, part of the problem with that is that that makes perfect sense, that Crossland for, 999 days out of every 1,000 days. But every so often, this isn't just the creek, it's also a flood zone when we get a high water event. And what I'm saying is that a drainage ditch that would carry the creek with a path over it will be great most of the time. What Chris is saying, and what the engineers would really like to see, is a bridge that would span the entire flood zone. So even
Floodway.
on that one day out of 1,000, everybody stays dry. What I'm saying is that I'm perfectly comfortable with having that kind of solution, like by Crossland, and accepting that on a very rare occasion, on a flood event, that whole bridge may be underwater, and we just are going to have to accept that after that, we have to go clean it off. Because that flood channel, and it happened, I think, 2 summers ago now.
15.
Yeah, 15. The creek wasn't, the width of the creek. It was twice the width of this room. I mean, it was an enormous quantity of water.
And water-
I'm
and-
comfortable with that getting washed out and repaired every 5 or 10 years instead of spending 20 times as much and spanning the entire width. Because if you look at the floodplain map, the entire park is blue. I mean, the whole thing's a floodplain.
To me, you give an architect and an engineer enough money, they can build.
And they would love to.
You
and
give them
enjoy
enough
doing
money,
it.
an engineer and an architect can build anything.
If you give me enough money for an architect, I can make it look good, too.
You just identified the pros and cons of
Absolutely.
engaging
Yes.
engineers and architects. But without them, we wouldn't have.
Exactly. The real challenge with this area is the floodway.
Is it what?
The floodway.
Yes, sir.
All the water that falls over here
Right through there.
goes right through there.
While we're talking about this project too, I've seen the plan for the Vance Trail that we
Yes.
paid for. And we've talked endlessly about getting across the lake, but I've never seen a design to get from the south edge of Meadow Lake to the lake. Do we have a trail design for that?
There's already a sidewalk there for part of it, I think.
No.
We have-
No, there isn't.
Okay.
You mean from where the
The trail
design
dead ends at the south edge
in
of
the
Meadow Lake.
southwest corner of Meadow Lake
Yep.
to get
Yes.
it over to,
Up to where you're gonna
the east
cross,
side.
where you're gonna cross the pond.
I don't know that, the current trail that we have, I don't think includes that, but the intent was that, at least my intent was, crossing the Meadow Lake from one side to the other, we would have to connect wherever the trail design ended on the south side and connect it to wherever it ends on the north side. We don't have that yet, I don't.
No, we do not have that.
I was just
I mean,
curious
there's-
how that was gonna be accomplished, because, we got a street in there, and we got park equipment, we've got shelter and all kinds of things.
Ron's
But
favorite
it doesn't
slot.
look to me like it's gonna be that simple a process. I know you can just walk on the grass, but, that's,
Or on the street.
Heaven
or
forbid.
in the street,
That's old school,
yeah, and they'd probably get lost.
not AD accessible.
While we're designing, I'd like to see that design.
Okay. Okay, more park improvements. This is one that's being done by Public Works. We've put $50K in to improve some fences and sidewalks and general site restoration over at Don Haskins. And we also have some money put in there to do some shoreline stabilization at Meadow Lake. This is the area of Meadow Lake shoreline that we're going to look at doing. We'll contract this out, and we may end up having to lower the lake a couple of feet to make this work, to do the construction. But we're hoping to get this stabilized so it'll last a little bit longer.
And just to be clear, Chris, I don't think the $100,000 is going to do all of that shoreline that you have in yellow, is it? Or is
The
that-
goal is to do all of it. The end result is we've got $100,000. How far will it go?
This is in the budget item, the riprap. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. This is this budget item right here, shore stabilization.
Right, it's in the actual budget as riprap. I just want
Is
to make
it?
sure we were,
Yes, yes.
okay. So is it they lower the water, you put in some
Riprap.
riprap, and then raise the water back up?
Well, we wait for it to rain.
It will happen.
Fair point, yeah.
The reason it's
Just
torn
turn on
out
the
now is because of rainwater
Yep.
coming in through there.
Okay?
And the
Okay.
shoreline stabilization is intended to do exactly what he said, but the areas that we see it really eroding away are around the dam area and where the boat dock would be in that, yes. that
This area right here.
So that's where we want to focus our
And
funding.
so, yes, and so our focus will be starting here through this way.
That parking, where the parking comes in on the north side.
Here?
Nope, over one, up in the middle. There you go.
Yep.
There too, it seems like
Yes.
it's eroded fairly badly there.
To me, if you don't do it, you're gonna have another dam in there somewhere
Well, it'll silt in.
on
and
the
that-
on the north side where it curls up there.
Well, and dredging it was a whole lot more expensive than that.
This right here is the overflow, emergency
Exactly.
overflow.
Exactly.
I understand I've had people who've told me that in May of 15, there was actually water coming around here.
Yeah, I went and looked, I went and watched it. It was,
Pretty impressive.
yeah, it was.
Okay?
Chris, going back to this one right here, the one we were talking about down Don Haskins Park,
Yes,
And one of the things we included there was the drinking fountain.
yes.
Don't we have a new drinking fountain up there by the new trailhead?
I believe we do, but I think they wanted one a little on the other side towards the tennis courts or go?
Oh, you're going over by the tennis courts. Oh, I thought maybe we were going to keep it on the side there with the basketball goals. But it's going to be on the tennis courts.
One over on the basketball side, it's just up by the.
Yeah, that's what I had seen. So, I mean, that's, first time ever, so I wasn't aware that we needed another one. Okay.
Trying to improve the parks.
You going to include Crossland Park before you're through?
Yes, I am. And next on the park projects, we've got some playground equipment for Lions Park and Hoover. You see the budget, the one at Lions Park is going to require that we add sidewalks and a parking spot. Here's where we anticipate putting the playground equipment over on Hoover. I have not seen a plan for this. It'll really depend on where we can find a good place to put a accessible parking lot and then associated sidewalk.
That doesn't seem like enough money for playground equipment. I mean, we spent,
The intent is for the equipment to be acquired and for Public Works to install.
okay,
We'll do the design work in-house for the parking spot.
Okay.
And depending on where we stand, we'll either have Gerald let Public Works do it, or we'll bid it out.
we'll do it of a similar quality as the,
The one off Randolph? Yes.
I can't picture the one off right now. I just mean the other, when we did the 7 or 8 all
Yeah.
at once, that,
Yes.
I don't know exactly, it'll be the same quality, but I don't know exactly
okay.
what
Those
equipment
have
they're
mostly
planning.
held up pretty well.
Yes, they have.
I think the intent at Hoover is to spend, well, the $25,000 for equipment. There's already sidewalks, parking, we're already good there. At Lions Park, I believe, Everett, can you help me out? Is it 50,000 and 27,000 worth of concrete work? Is that what the?
7,000 figured into the whole project. 25 is going to go into the playground equipment. We've been already researching it. We can get it anywhere from 15 to 20,000.
Okay,
Yeah, we've done some extensive looking at it, so we think these are good estimates, and we'll, I know that we'd had some complaints because we'd taken some equipment out of the park that was old and not ADA and unsafe.
fun.
What we'll probably do in the future to avoid those is fun, yes. We will look to make the transition at the same time. Same time we take something out, let's put something in. And so this fixes what actually it adds at Hoover, I think, and fixes at
Yeah.
Lions.
That Hoover splash pad gets used all the time in the summer.
Okay. Some additional park projects up at Crossland Park. We need to put in a sidewalk in it to provide access to our up-and-coming softball fields. And then we're also going to work on some additional parking.
They also have a drinking fountain problem by the tennis court. I've heard more than once. I'm not a tennis player, so I assume
Okay?
they're interested in
As you can see from the location map, here's where we're building our softball fields. We do have some existing accessible parking here that we did last year. So we need to complete this route, and then we'll work on adding parking there.
Great. And then long-term, do we own the property between the north side of those fields and the trail?
Yes, we do.
What's that little, is that a well house or kind of in the middle above the second? Yeah.
I believe that's a pump house,
Pump
and then
house,
that
okay.
is an oil
I know that's the
field.
well side, but yeah, okay. Is that pump house ours or?
Yes.
Cool.
The long-term intent is to come in and add 2 more softball fields, depending on funding.
I mean,
et cetera.
but we could move the pump house without.
Yes, I'm sure Lou, most people could do it.
Chris's face said no. No, you
it.
can't.
Because engineering and architecture
Yeah,
might be.
there you go.
Only
The
if you
softball
can-
field with the pump house right at center base.
Well, we could, either that or make it pictures, man.
Yeah, pitcher's mound, sure, great, fine. Great idea.
We'll work through that when we get there.
Special field.
That tank battery's not gonna get moved, probably.
No.
Probably not. Okay, another one on the south side of Middle Lake. We need to do some refurbishment of
Yeah.
the shelter there. Minor repairs, little paint, repair the roof. That'll all be done in-house by Public Works. Question?
Before we get off parks, we're losing some shingles on some of the shelters, Government Springs.
At Government Springs?
Yes.
Okay.
I was down there last week. I think the far east side and maybe the far east side are just losing shingles, just small stuff, but, well, I'm thinking about it.
We'll look into rolling that into this.
When are the horseshoe pits gonna be ready at Meadow Lake Park?
We have about 4 more to do, and we'll be done,
When?
we're looking here by August, we should be done.
How many have they built?
There was, I think right now there were
How many?
7.
7?
Okay?
As we're talking about public work issues, I'm just curious to know, are we understaffed as far as employees in Lou's department?
Well, that's an interesting question. Could we use more employees specifically? Yes, probably we could. I would say, are we understaffed? We look at that every year. I would say no, but Lou, what would ever can?
We're keeping up with the guys are actually trying to take on little extra projects for, as far as public utilities is concerned, no work for that issue I have.
The reason why I asked that question is, if it was yes, is it due to the fact of individuals not being able to pass certain type of drug testing or things like that, or are they unqualified, or what?
No, it probably. So there's probably multiple parts of that question. One is we have certain requirements for hiring employees. We come up with a job description of skills they have to have, and then our standard, we have pre-employment, post-offer drug testing. We have drug testing programs for employees that directly affect the safety of others. So no, I don't think we're having challenges filling positions that we have, and the challenges that we do have may be more related to pay. If we paid a little better, we might be able to attract more folks. However, our benefits are really good, and I've noticed that in many positions, we have people leave that talk about pay, but then they come right back to us because they found out that other companies may pay better, but they don't have long-term stability or long-term benefits.
That's a good point.
We're constantly looking at, not just myself, directors, supervisors, looking at staffing levels. If it's appropriate to add some, we will. I think last time Aaron showed you on our chart, we've been at about 550-some employees, which I think counts our temporary and part-timers too, for probably a 10 or 15-year history. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I think some positions we have more trouble than others filling. It's usually because of certain skills or direct pay. Which is normally what happens.
I think the prime example is engineering. Right now, I'm short one, and I have a guy coming in for interview in a week or so. As we move forward in the next couple of years, probably in the next year, I'm going to be understaffed, but I can't tell you that I can find somebody to come up here and do the work for me. There's a number of
I think if you look
things.
at the overall salary package of the city of Enid, it's very good, and Joe's exactly right. Some people will leave for $25, $50, and they find out their health expenses are going to be $400 or $500. It's a big item today. And they do have a good benefit package.
I also want to say that there are some projects that I believe city employees can do better and more efficiently. And there are some that the private sector is better suited to do. We talked about the concrete crew earlier. I've got, I think, 5 people or 6 people, something like that on the concrete crew. We're well suited to do repair certain panels in concrete streets. In our street department, we're quite capable of patching sections of street and doing some of the repairs you see going around town. The project that we did on West Brow was a very good, I consider that a repair project. I thought maybe you were referring to the street we did on Elm Street about 2 years ago that we were beset by all kinds of problems. That wasn't just a street issue, that was stormwater, that was utility issues, voids, and all kinds of things. I think that ended up being about a 9-month or 10-month project with the 5 or 6 person crew, and that's not the most efficient use of those folks. However, they did a fantastic job. I like driving up and down that street and walking on the sidewalks. That's what I mean when I say that with our street programs and even with the limited funding we have, it's much more efficient for us to have engineering engineer them up for the streets you guys want and then bid them out and have them done. But if it did make sense at some point to add employees to do certain things, I would certainly be open to doing that. We kind of have to look at, we always have to look at the cost-benefit ratio, and we also have to look at when I use city employees to do something, then I have to look at the opportunity cost. What am I losing that I would have them be doing otherwise? And many times, it's, even though they could, for instance, build a building. We've done that before. We could, and we may do some more of it. But we have to be careful about how many people involved, how long it takes us. And so I'm going into a long-winded answer about, I think our staffing's about right, but we tweak it every year. We're open to always tweaking it. If you have ideas, feel free to let me know what you think.
Okay. Going over to street improvement funds, reconstruction and overlay. This is our mill and overlay for the coming, excuse me, budget year.
It needs it.
Bad.
Yeah.
And you ought to see work start on relocating the water line pretty shortly.
So this will be not just the design, but actually the project.
Yes.
What time frame will this likely be constructed?
Design will start pretty quick. Construction will be this time next year.
Okay.
It's really a challenge to get all the work, the design work and permitting and all the utilities relocated any faster than.
So by fall of 19, we're going to have a really nice street all the way from the highway to the campus.
Absolutely.
That'll be great.
With some improved sidewalks as well.
Just all the way.
Okay? Okay, under Stormwater Improvement Fund, we have our standard $750,000 that we do to reduce our inundation, our I&I program, reduction in identification and removal. That's what we call it. We perform periodic inspections and point repairs. We also have some money budgeted to do model runs on our master plan. You'll recall that we're doing a stormwater master plan update this year, in the current budget year, to update our 2009 model. Part of that is we get a model, a capability to run changes to the model, and we'll run those every now and again to see if we've got any flow issues or any capacity issues potentially coming down the road. Additionally, we have some money set aside in here to construct a sanitary sewer public improvement for the soccer complex at 475. Enid Sports is doing the design, and this is where we anticipate the construction to happen. We'll know for sure once we see their design. This is obviously Garland, this is Evandale, and just tie right in there.
How far does this go? Just to Garland, or?
This is Garland right here, so this is Root.
Sorry, how far is the improvement? Is it just that L shape?
That is the sanitary sewer improvement, yes it is.
Okay.
The intent is to build that such that somewhere along here, and like I said, we'll know when we see their design work, is where they want to put their administrative and restroom buildings.
I just mean we don't have to go through that neighborhood. We can just tie into the end.
Oh, yes, we just tie into the end.
And then we'll go underneath Garland and tie into the neighborhood.
Correct.
All right, gotcha.
How far west does it go, Chris?
A little less than about an eighth of a mile. This is a quarter corner right here. Here's Garland and Root.
Yes.
And then it goes north a little bit.
What's that white area in the southwest?
This?
Yes.
That's OG&E. You'll recall, yes?
And that is a dirt road going down there,
Yes.
in case you didn't know.
No, we've been talking about access as well with the Sports Association, making sure that their access plans fit well with Garland, and to include the necessary XL decel lanes. Entrances onto Garland will be 3 lanes, so there'll be a dedicated left turn lane for northbound Garland traffic. And then As this develops, we're going to have to do a little improvement in this Garland and Root intersection to make that flow a little better. So, but we're working with them, have met with them several times.
ODOT can add that to their
wish list.
their infrastructure list.
I've got some.
There are no shoulders there.
I've got some that I'd rather them pay for than this one.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in too. They are making, the Enid Sports LLC group is making progress. They purchased the land. As you recall, we had a study session, I think back in November or so of last year. At that time, we talked about a series of improvements over a series of years, basically roughly about $1 million a year for 3 years. At this point, we're still on track for a plan similar to that. They are working on their site plan. Chris referenced they've engaged an engineer. They're paying them money to design the soccer fields and this. So as soon as they submit that site plan, we'll start doing some more work on it. And they already know that I want them to come in and do a presentation to you again about this. We've talked about it a few times. It'll be a fantastic improvement for Enid, and what was also involved in it is at some point it will be the property of the city of Enid, because at some point, just like the David Allen Ballpark model, it will be deeded or leased back or something like that. So I know that there'll be work with their lawyer and Carol on that as we go.
Is there any
Great.
concerns in terms of flooding in that area? I know the current fields that they have flooding issues, and we're talking about extending this area here to have more.
Actually, there's really not much of a concern for flooding in this area. This piece of property has a high spot right around here, okay? And north of that goes north. This is our stormwater detention facility. This is also stormwater detention. And so what little runoff that we have to deal with, we'll take care of, and I got a slide to talk to that, in this corner right here. We may have to improve getting the water under root, improve that structure, but we won't know that until we see a little more what they got going.
Well, presumably they won't have that much hard surface.
That is
It'll
a
be-
tremendous revenue-generating piece of property.
Lots of parking lots, but there's lots of
Yeah, I mean, there'll
Right
be
now,
some
they
parking
play
lots,
in
but most of
a
that,
retention area.
Retention area, yeah.
that'll be permeable
Another
surface.
one.
And you'll recall from last Tuesday's presentation, the floodplain is over way up here.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I don't really see a problem. My biggest concern is getting traffic in and out. Under stormwater, we also have a project to replace the box up on Willow Road over there by Prairie View. It's starting to deteriorate. We know that at some point in the future, we'll need to replace it, and we'd rather get ahead of it. As we talked about on the Cleveland project, we have a stormwater issue that we're not yet figured out how to solve. What we've added is a little additional funds in there to do some more studies and analysis and see if we can come up with a way of dealing with that stormwater without the exorbitant cost. I don't have any answers for you on this one, but this is a significant problem. There's a lot of water that goes down Cleveland. Rolling Oaks is sized to take it and control it, but I got to get it down Cleveland, and I got to get it under the railroad tracks, and I got a problem.
Yeah.
Okay?
Wasn't this the actual storm water retention issue is why we built that great big area
Yes.
west
Rolling,
side of the road?
correct. Rolling Oaks is sized to take all that stormwater. It is what it needs to be.
Now it's just an issue of getting the water to that.
Exactly. And as we get a little more information, and if Gerald's comfortable with it, we'd like to do a study session presentation on that, just tell you where we're at.
We have a lot of people praying for rain, so stay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. When the time comes and we got
Yes.
more information, we definitely bring it to you and keep you informed. It also keeps the public informed.
Absolutely. We also have another stormwater structure that needs to be repaired over on Randolph, west of Oakwood. It's this one right here. It ought to be a fairly straightforward project. We really don't anticipate a lot of issues with it. It's replace a caving in pipe.
Tell me what it is.
This is Randolph, and over here is the corner of Oakwood, where the Casey's is. I think that's the name of that place. So this right here is Oakwood Road and Randolph.
Seven Pines area up there.
Okay? We also have some design work started for stormwater. We need to start thinking about doing our next detention facility, which is called the Meadows. And the Meadows is north of Roop and bracketed between Cleveland and Oakwood Road. We've not really, okay? Where it comes off of Oakwood West Detention Facility, goes under Oakwood, turns south, goes under southeast and goes under the railroad tracks, which are not on there. Somewhere after the railroad is where we'll start working on looking at design. We still need to reach out to the property owner and let him know that we're interested and see if he's okay with us, if he'll entertain our discussions on how we can incorporate our detention in that area, if he's willing to work with us. But that's the next up on the list. We slowed the water down there. Now have slowed the flow and the rate of water going into the core channel, which is what we need to be doing now.
We own that property?
No, sir, we do not. That's why we said we need to go talk to the landowner and make sure that he's okay with us doing this.
This budget item is just design, though, right?
Just
Doesn't it?
design.
But we will probably likely need some kind of geotechnical surveys in the area, which requires landowner permission.
Absolutely. Well, and he's got to be willing to sell us a stormwater easement or a piece of property.
Does that site carry a lot of water now, Chris?
All the water that comes down Garland goes across that property.
Pretty good channel in there.
Plus what comes down Oakwood. So this is actually right out of the McLaughlin report. They recommend building this one, and it's time for it to be built. Okay? We also need to start the process of doing a maintenance project to dredge the core channel. It's time, is what I can tell you. You can tell by looking at the channel, the flow line, the vegetation. This will get started on the design work and then start the permitting process. I don't really anticipate that this will be a quick project. I think permitting will require significant effort. Since we are,
Now, where is this dredging going to take place?
this will go from probably about Roop north and maybe a little south of Roop is where we'll start.
Is this, we're talking about the channel that runs into the Meadow Lake?
Yes, sir. We're talking about the big core channel.
Basically, there are a lot of cottonwood trees in that channel, right? In that channel.
And the Corps of Engineers is really particular about dredge and fill on when it's under their jurisdiction.
Don't just send a backhoe down there and cut them loose.
And you don't want your backhoe down there when it rains.
Yeah, fair.
Okay? We also have some stormwater work to do for the soccer complex. Like we talked about before, the Sports Association is going to do the design work. We anticipate it to be somewhere in this area. Once we see what the capacities that we're going to have to handle, we'll decide whether or not we need to deal with getting it under Roop. And if we do end up having to get it under Roop, we'll size it such that, and build and construct it such that if we ever decide to improve that intersection, that work is done. Okay? Okay, we also have an open channel from Hoover back to the west that's creating quite a challenge in the maintenance department. The slopes are a little steep, There's a lot of vegetation in there, particularly back up on this end. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start seeing what we can do about that, do a little design work and do a little improvement. And it'll give us a better idea on what we need in the future budgets to work all of this. But if we can take and knock, 8 hours of work out of their schedule over in Public Works for maintenance, that's money saved. Under water capital improvement, we have some 4406 funds, budgeted 260 there. These are all going to be public utilities projects. They'll be done in-house. The first one is they need to install some automatic line flushing valves within some of our dead-end lines. When you have a dead-end line, you have a problem where you get aged water and you get sedimentation in your pipes. The idea is either you loop those lines, which is our preferred solution, but looping them costs quite a fair amount of money. The other alternative is to flush the lines. So we're going to try that. Okay? As I said before, we have some dead-end lines that we are going to fix. These are over on Garfield. I've got a location map here, and tie these. You can see that these are all dead ends, and tie them and loop them into the rest of the system. That'll help us out with that. It'll also improve, if we do, it'll also improve our fire flow some. We have our standard water main replacement project that we do every year now. This is another one that is a joint effort between engineering and public utilities. This year, we're going to look at Oak Avenue. Get the design done, we'll get the permit out of DEQ, and they'll come along and replace that line. You can see there's several areas that have been patched, clear indication that we've got a fairly leaky pipe.
Does this also improve fire flows in that area?
I can't tell you. It depends on the size of the pipe we're putting in and what services are there.
Okay.
So without looking a little deeper, I can't really confirm.
Brian's sitting in the fire seat, he should know.
Then the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because he just shook his head.
Yeah.
We've got a new project we're starting off. It's going to be a reoccurring one. It's to replace and repair fire hydrants. We have a large number of hydrants in town that need some work. Lou's going to take this on, and we'll see how far we go. We also have coming back here for another 30 from our replacement of water main valves. It's a reoccurring maintenance kind of thing. Under water upgrades and extensions, we have our standard wellfield improvement project. We've budgeted $750 on this one. This is a continuous project to do improvements and maintain the wellfield. One of the things that we're looking at doing this year is do some refurbishments of some existing wells. One of the obvious candidates is the well up by the softball field. Is if it makes sense to re-drill that well out of the way, then that's what we'll do, but we'll look at it. We also have a project here to replace a water line under the railroad tracks on Cleveland. This one has been designed. We have the permits from DEQ and from the railroad. It's a bore, so we'll bore that line. It failed 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and so all we could do at the time, since we was valve it off and get ready to replace it. Now's the time.
What road crossing now are we looking at there?
Oklahoma.
We're going to do some water line improvements for the soccer complex. Again, the Sports Association will do the design work. I don't really have a location map for what they want yet. We'll know more once we see their site plan, and we'll get started on it.
This is the new soccer.
The new soccer complex over at Garland, right? Okay. We also have a project here to put a blow-off. Yes, sir.
all the improvements that we're doing for the soccer complex, does it also include what we're gonna donate to that project? Do you know, Gerald? or-
That's the part.
That is our contribution.
It's part of it.
The $3 million we talked about over 3 years. This is roughly about $1.1 million, I think, in this current budget. And it's focused on the infrastructure that's needed. And it appears to fit with the conceptual plan that they've given us moving forward. So the city's contribution to this, which will ultimately end up being a city facility, is focused on infrastructure at this point.
That was my next question, you know, by us investing in this project, will we have ownership part of it or part ownership?
All of it.
All of it?
Yes,
Okay.
and that will
Eventually.
be worked out likely before any of this is done, one way or the other. I know that their attorney's working with Carol, and we'll come up with something that ultimately will come to you guys for approval. And I'd like that to kind of match the timing of, or at least, that they need a little more time to get their site plan turned in to know exactly what they're doing, because there are budget constraints that we'll all have, we have, and they have as well with their donors. But the conceptual plan I've seen has shown an estimate of $6 million total. And so there's some things I think they may have to be looking at rearranging or scaling back on their side, and we'll have to continue to look at phasing things in. But what I see going forward, based on your final approval and what you think, is we focus on the infrastructure. The park becomes a city soccer park or facility. The city leases that organization, gives them a lease to run it, and that the income that they have off of that soccer facility, primarily from tournaments and from people locally that use it, fund the facility. Because right now the intent is and the vision is that they will have people in their organization, they will maintain it, mow the grass, do everything that needs to be done. That won't be our park department. A similar model to David Allen Ballpark is what we've talked about.
So it'd be a never-ending capital improvement that would actually just generate a lot of revenue in many different facets, you know, hotels and the use of
Revenue's
everything.
unbelievable.
It's incredible.
Cut it in half, it's an unbelievable revenue source for
Bring a
us.
lot of folks to
Yeah.
town.
That's what we need
Their
to find
projection
more
is-
of this.
Their projection is unreal. As I indicated, if you cut that revenue figure in half, it's a ton of money for the revenue.
Do we have any idea when they're planning on opening this park? Do they have a date in mind?
I'm hesitant to put out a date, but they have talked about midway through 2020.
Okay.
I believe is the date that, now that's subject to, they haven't completed their plan, and so it's not gonna happen overnight or even next year. It's gonna be probably the year after, that'd be the earliest.
And so the plan obviously is, once they get their site plan in, get the infrastructure underground that needs to be there, let them do their grading and grade work, stormwater work, we'll take care of that, and then move on to building fields, and then parking and transportation.
Will some of this work be subbed out to private contractors, or is it gonna be all city?
But it's, again, when we see what they have, because they're coming up with they're doing the design work, as Chris has said, we will determine the part that we're obligating, and ultimately you guys will be obligating to do, the city to do. We will look at, can we do it ourselves, and can we do it without impacting us in other areas with the labor? I think it's the initial look is that we can do some of this ourselves with the water. In fact, Lou, I think you've looked at that, and it's similar to the work that his crews are doing on water lines in the city. This is basically just laying some water lines. The sewer work I don't know so much on. We'll have to probably look at that some more. But so the best answer I have for you is some of it will be contracted and some of it will be city.
It'll be a
appointed.
shared venture.
Yes.
Okay.
And then on their side, they'll be, my intent is that they'll be working their own projects above the ground stuff, like soccer fields. There's got to be somebody to build that. They'll be working those details out. And that's part of what we've asked them to capture in the whole site plan, so that that's the way developers bring a project to the city, and then we communicate with everybody, including the city commission, about what's happening. And before that, we figure out what's required. We make sure it meets all the city standards And as Chris Bauer will tell us, that the waters, the utilities, the roads, all that stuff is met. So it's an exciting time. The current process that we have with site plans is it's decentralized. So you don't see them as much. On this specific one, you will see it because we want you to see it, be happy with it, and in the end, you have to approve these items going forward.
Derwin, in regards to your question several minutes ago, we may have to market and promote Enid with the venues that we have, not with just one in particular. We have we're working toward a lot of venues that bring people and generate revenue for our city, as opposed to one item, like the mall in Washington. But, you know, we have a lot of good things in motion right now. It just takes time to complete them. We're gonna be a few years older before that gets here.
Well, as long as we make it happen.
It will.
Okay.
We do a lot of things right.
Okay, in water capital improvement, we also have a project to protect our 20-inch line going east of town. What we found is that line has experienced several catastrophic failures. The results have been really a lot of work. The root cause is water hammering, which is lack of valve control for the amount of flow going through it. The intent of this project is to acquire a blow-off valve, get it installed, and reduce those events, reduce our maintenance. And this
There's
is,
a high-pressure event, is it just like a fountain shooting up in the sky?
well, actually, depends on whether it splits on the top or the side. If it splits on any of the side, it'll move the pipe and then erode everything. If it goes up, it's a muddy mess.
No, I mean the pressure relief valve, how does that work?
We'll channel that to, I believe Lou has talked to the guy who owns this property,
Okay, cool.
and he's got a pond in here somewhere.
You'll have a surprise fountain periodically.
One out at La Homa or
Yeah.
down at Okarchi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
We still got to do the calculations on how much water we're talking about, make sure we don't create an erosion problem. But it beats sending Lou out to dig up the pipe and replace it,
It's fair.
and the water lost. Last slide here on projects, we have what we call our escrow fund. This is a transfer to stormwater. As developers come to town and pay their stormwater development fee, the ordinance says that we take those fees and transfer them to stormwater when we've done work in the basin at which those fees were paid. This is just the budgetary item that does that. Okay? Last slide. In summary, 51 projects, 2.8 million. That's how they break out in, that's approximate, how they break out in funds. And when you're ready, if you got any changes, let us know and we'll take care of it.
But before you leave this, Chris, I'm not positive this belongs in this particular location. But I was downtown a couple of weeks ago at night, and I noticed a number of the downtown street lights are not working.
I will ask Everett to get with Frank and figure that out. I was down there the other day. I saw quite a few that were working, but it wasn't quite dark yet. I saw some on one side of the road, but we will.
I noticed they're on Independence along that block where the
Okay, I think I was on. Yeah, Everett, if you will do that.
nonprofit center is. There were several street lights there that were out.
They may have been taken, I know that Main Street's been doing a bunch of repair. They have a program where they take apart the globes and go cycle parts in and out. I think that may have been the week they had a weekend where they did work. They may or may not be related, but I know they've repaired a bunch of the.
Yeah, but it really bothers me that it really makes the downtown look shabby when you got a bunch of damn street lights that aren't lit.
We'll get Public Works to take a quick look.
Okay.
Okay?
Chris out there with the ladder.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Mayor, Commissioners, if there's any items that you know of at this time that you'd like to revisit from last week or today, or any other items that are in the budget, I'd be glad to review those with you. If there's anything you'd like to make motions on or take votes and action so that we can capture those and bring them back as a summary slide for you at the meeting on Thursday, I would appreciate that feedback. If not, we're going to wrap up on Thursday with airport, an update from the event center, police, fire, and finish up with EEDA. And those are the remaining funds that we have to cover on Thursday.
Yeah, let me just jump out there on a recap of the day anyway. What I've heard sitting up here. On local streets, we've shown you some future projects that are really carryovers, but I think we probably need to have a further discussion with all of you to make sure that we are capturing what your priorities are, the highest priorities for the streets you want us to work on, with the funds we have. So we can certainly do that. It may not be, this may not happen Thursday. The amount of money we have can certainly be used for whatever streets you ultimately approve. So I would expect that we would come back shortly, probably in June or as soon as possible, to give us the information to get, so that engineering knows what streets to basically be focused on.
I'd like to know a little bit more about their process and how they make those determinations.
When we look at that list, let's make sure we have, like, pictures and information about it, so we're not shooting from the hip.
I can tell you that as far as evaluations of our local streets, I think we will tell you more at the time, but we had an evaluation done, probably it's been more than 10 years ago or more. We're working off those lists and what other needs come to the top of the
Squeaky
list
wheel.
for various reasons, squeaky wheels, or just streets that were have deteriorated faster than we thought. We certainly need to talk to you about the criteria that we think about and use and that you may want us to use, like how much traffic there is on that street, how many people live on that street, how many people are impacted there. So I can see a very good comprehensive study session coming up on that, even in advance of figuring out, bringing back maybe lists of streets for you to help us prioritize. We do need help. That's a constant challenge. The great thing is, though, you can't be wrong, because whatever list you come up with, they need to be fixed.
Can't
So
be right.
there's plenty of streets you can't be right.
Gerald, 5 or 6 years ago, we had a list of all the street work that needed to be done. That list was like $185 million. Do we still have that list?
We still have that list. I don't know what the total is, and it's probably not in current valuations, but engineering normally keeps a long list of values of streets, and Public Works has a long list of the original, or the evaluation that was done some years ago. It's about a 20-page listing, and it's not as user-friendly as I would like it to be in the future, but it does list streets. Chris has talked about in the future, in fact, we could add it back to this budget if we wanted to, figuring out what our criteria is and doing some sort of evaluation again. I have wanted to avoid doing that right now because that's expensive, and I think with our limited resources, I'd like to fix streets because, as we mentioned, none of us can be wrong and none of us can be right, I guess, but whatever streets get fixed with the limited funds we have, they need to be fixed.
Sure.
Gerald, one other thing too, I know last year, in the budget process, we talked quite a bit about the street striping, and I know we've been working on that, but I'd like to have an update on the street striping. We've still got a lot of intersections in particular that need to be marked properly, and they're just gone, and I'd like to see us concentrate on that, and if you could tell us what the plans are for that, I'd appreciate it.
You bet. That can be a future study session for sure. We'll come back with that. I know our efforts are to keep that machine going, weather permitting, year-round. Now, that is one area that was mentioned earlier, that the same people that I have doing street striping are the same people that do signage throughout the city. So anytime somebody runs over a stop sign or somebody wants a new stop sign, or the wayfinding signage, we've got some of the same people. So that may be something we need to look at to improve our efforts. But I will tell you myself, I've noticed a dramatic improvement over the last couple of years in street painting in the city. So like most of us, our citizens and you, when I go to other communities, I'm always gauging how we're doing by looking at what I see in other communities. And I see a lot of communities struggling with street striping, but we can do better. We can talk about it specifically. I got that down with the streets. The meeting we had before this one, we discussed, there is some concern about the poor condition of our golf maintenance building. So we're probably trying to look at some options there to try and come up with an estimate that we think is reasonable, that will encompass concrete, running water, electricity, and see what that is, to see if we can fit that in and bring it back. Today, we've talked about the trail, particularly the Meadow Lake crossing from the south side to the north side. I've heard that loud and clear. Soon we will have the results of that, and we'll see what we can do on that as well. What else did I got here? The Vance Trail design itself, if it's really $1 million, which I think that sounds about right, we're going to need some help on that one. That one's going to be hard to get funded this current year. Sure. That's kind of the things I've captured. I know you guys probably have some things, and Jennifer has detailed notes in the audience. She keeps us straight on.
We talked a little bit about figuring out what it would take to start supporting CNG vehicles in our fleet over time.
Yes, we do have that.
Okay.
I didn't mention that, but yes.
Interestingly enough, when I served on the commission back in the late 80s, we discussed that at quite some length, and the city had expressed quite a bit of interest in CNG.
It's come a long way.
And whatnot, but we haven't really, it kind of had a flurry. I don't think, the school system for a while, we had CNG buses, and I'm not sure they even use those anymore. I'm not sure why, but they had a refill station there behind where the administration building is, but.
We will definitely study it again. I can tell you from looking at it probably a year or so ago with a company that was coming, a company that came here or was wanting to come here and do some stuff, and we're really the difficulty with getting to something like that or alternative fuel is low fuel prices. But fuel prices are going back up. Technology is better. Maybe so. We'll look at it again. Bring you our results at a future study session.
Thanks.
This is great because this is helping me get our study sessions lined up for the next couple of months too.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, but you guys have probably several thoughts and comments, so please, this is your time.
Hit the highlights.
Aaron?
We're just at a place, if there's anything else you guys want to discuss or have comments or questions. Other than that, we're wrapped up for today.
And then next time we're doing
airport, the event center, police and fire, and wrapping up with the Economic Development Authority.
okay.
And then the intent is to come back on the 15th, and that would be when you would actually approve the budget, the whole budget.
Right.
If for some reason we're not ready, or you guys aren't comfortable, or we haven't gotten you enough information, we can always come back at a later time, a special meeting, or June the 5th is our next meeting.
With an emergency.
With emergency.
We'll ask for an emergency at that time, which puts the budget into effect and not wait 30 days. after
Aaron,
notification.
thanks again.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned.
Thank you for joining us for the Enid City Commission meeting. All meetings are broadcast on local cable channel 12 and in high definition on channel 112. In addition, the council meeting is live streamed on the web at enidtv.org. If you have any questions or comments regarding this broadcast, please visit the City of Enid website at enid.org.